The opinions and views expressed by individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be opinions of the network, their group, their organizations they may be involved with.
Looking at myself, reflections of my mind. It's just the kind of day to leave myself behind. So gently swaying through the fairyland of love. If you'll just come with me, you'll see the beauty of Tuesday evening news. Tuesday evening
Well, hello everyone, and welcome to the Psychedelic Reporters, episode 79 for this Tuesday, September the 19th, 2023, here on NOK Network, the video news podcast focused on psychedelic medicine being reported in mainstream media. And shout out to the guys in Dead Ringer from Kirkland Lake, Ontario for the awesome intro track originally recorded by the Moody Blues with some customized changes for our show. I'm joined by my amazing joint host, Kim Cooper, and along with the one and only Bufo Alverius. Hello, Kim, and hello, Bufo. There we go. I got it right this time. Very on. So we'll put Bufo right for a bit. We'll bring him back a little bit later.
Absolutely. I'm doing a dab.
You do a dab. You deserve a dab.
I'm doing a dab. We're running a little bit late tonight, and it was like absolutely 100% me. I'm half dressed, like I didn't get my dab in. I rushed to the computer. But I'm here. I heard Bufo chirping away in my ear, right? And I mean, he's like, Kim, you better hurry up. It's time to do Psychedelic Reporters. Of course, Bufo Alverius is otherwise known as the Sonoran Desert Toad or the Colorado Mud Toad. As a defense mechanism, Bufo excretes DMT through his skin. Park rangers in the US of A and around the world would like to remind people that capturing the Bufo for pleasure reasons can harm the toads. So we would like to remind everybody to please don't lick the toad.
Yeah, no siree, no licking the toads. So yeah, it's been another week. We got another set of stories for everyone here. Yeah, I guess it's your line next.
That's okay. It's time to get at it. It's time to get at it. Let's go down to our top stories that Bufo Alverius has picked out for us this week.
We will, and there we go. The first one's coming to us from CTV News. Health professionals and patients challenging rejection to use psilocybin in training.
Love the picture here. Of course, yes. Friend of the show, friend of mine personally, friend of the show, friend of NOK Network, the one and only Thomas Hartle in the house on the cover for this particular story. Yes. Great man that's moving mountains here in Canada.
Certainly
dealing with Health Canada. Absolutely. A group of healthcare workers and patients have turned to federal court in an effort to overturn Health Canada's rejection of the request to use a restricted psychedelic drug for professional training. Health Canada turned down the request last month to allow health workers to access and consume psilocybin, the psychedelic compound produced by magic mushrooms, after they argued it was necessary for professional training to provide psilocybin-assisted therapy. The group of 79 individuals which includes nurses, doctors, counselors, patients, and patients, filed an application for judicial review of Health Canada's decision with the court on Friday, their lawyer said.
Yeah, so awesome. Not an awesome story so far, but awesome in the fact that they're not giving up and that they're requesting a judicial review on that.
Yeah.
So anyways, I'll continue on here. There's a quote here saying there are very few healthcare practitioners in Canada who are trained in administering psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy. These few practitioners are unable to meet the overwhelming need the application files with the court said. Many patients are unable to receive treatment. Many more are unable to even begin the process of seeking treatment because there are not enough trained healthcare practitioners. The healthcare professionals are arguing that experiencing the restricted drug themselves is needed to safely provide psilocybin-assisted therapy to patients. And their case comes after a similar application for I'll start that sentence over again. Their case comes after a similar application for adjudication review on behalf of 96 health professionals was argued in federal court in March, a ruling that is pending.
Yeah. I mean, we're seeing this.
Yeah.
Then we're seeing this taking place in the United States where facilitators are being trained. And the best way to train them is to allow them to participate in involving them in the medicine. Nicholas Pope is the lawyer representing the healthcare workers and patients in both cases. And he said the latest legal effort involves Tarmos Hartle, a 54-year-old from Saskatchewan, who is the first person in Canada granted permission to undergo psilocybin-assisted therapy. Hartle has stage 4 terminal cancer and suffers from end-of-life distress, Pope said. As a quote here from him, what he's found is he needs treatment about every 3 to 6 months because it starts to wear off, Pope said in a phone interview. Now he's unable to get further treatment because for each of his past treatments that has been approved by Health Canada, he's had to fly from his home in Saskatoon to British Columbia to have it done. Pope said that it's difficult for Hartle as a terminal cancer patient to keep traveling to BC for treatment. Now he's unable to continue getting his treatment because there are no adequately trained practitioners closer to his home in Saskatchewan, the lawyer said. So in an affidavit filed with the court, Hartle writes that the psilocybin-assisted therapy has been effective for him. Before going through it, he was in a constant state of depression, and all he could think about was his imminent death, he said.
Yeah, and Health Canada did not respond to a request for a comment on the latest case on Friday, which obviously is no surprise in my opinion.
Yes.
Psilocybin-assisted psychotherapy involves ingesting consciousness-altering substances like psilocybin in a clinical setting as part of more traditional psychotherapy. A trained, licensed clinical practitioner then provides therapy that guides patients as they experience the effects of the psychedelic. Several peer-reviewed studies have found such psychotherapy can safely and effectively treat patients dealing with psychological and physical pain that is otherwise treatment resistant. In 2020, Health Canada started granting exemptions under the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act to patients suffering from end-of-life psychological distress, treatment-resistant depression, and major depressive disorder. In the previous case, in March, Pope argued in court that Canada was violating the rights of hundreds of patients by creating a barrier for doctors trying to get training on how to provide the therapy, growing the backlog of patients looking to access therapists offering the treatment.
It's just so terrible. Thousands of patients across Canada who suffer from treatment-resistant depression, major depressive disorder, and end-of-life distress have tried countless treatments and medications, but have found no relief, he told the court. Each day that goes on, delay increases risk of harm. Waitlisted patients have testified that they've contemplated or attempted suicide. Pope said that at the time it was absolutely essential for professionals who want to get a license to experience the psychedelics themselves, because experts have all agreed that experiential training and personal experience with psilocybin is required to safely guide patients through psilocybin assisted psychotherapy. In March, a lawyer for Health Canada argued that Health Canada hasn't seen evidence that therapists ingesting the psychedelic trains them to provide more effective treatment. They just make me so angry. There are
no.
Canadians who provide the psychotherapy without having consumed magic mushrooms during their trainings, lawyer Jennifer Francis has said. She also said that the health minister believes that the healthcare professionals are making sweeping and conclusive statements about the state of scientific evidence on psychedelics. Pope said he was expecting a decision on the March case very soon. Hopefully, if we get a positive result in the first court case, the government will do the right thing on this latest court case, he said. And yeah, let's hope, right?
Yeah. That's all you can do,
I
really.
mean, it just makes me so bloody angry, because Health Canada likes to override evidence that has been accepted as standards of practice in places all over the United States that
Yep.
are already training their professional workforce
Yeah.
over there in states like Oregon and elsewhere, where this is the standard of care, this is the standard of practice. And then you've got some butthead in a suit at Health Canada that's probably not even a doctor that
Exactly.
says, oh, well, I disagree.
Yep. Yep. It's a sad state of affairs for the patients.
It really is. It really is.
It is.
Hello, Facebook user. Hello, Justin Jenkins. Yeah,
So,
it really is.
yeah.
It's sad.
Yeah. So we're going to move over to our next story here. You can take this one away if you wish.
Absolutely. We're coming over to the BBC. The firm's hoping to take psychedelic drugs mainstream. Josh Goldstein is the first wave of licensed psilocybin facilitators in Oregon.
Yeah, and you just made reference to what Oregon's progressing through with right now.
Yeah.
So yeah, let's see what this has to say. This July in Bend, Oregon, Josh Goldstein facilitated one of the first magic mushroom sessions under the state's new regulatory framework for people to access their active ingredient, psilocybin. Mr. Goldstein's 71-year-old client was seeking help with his obsessive-compulsive disorder. The man experienced his psychedelic trip at a licensed psilocybin service center after eating a measured quality of the dried fungi. I wonder if that's supposed to say quantity.
I think it's supposed to say quantity. I think that's a typo. Yeah.
Mr. Goldstein, a licensed psilocybin facilitator with bendable therapy, prepared him for what to expect ahead of time, and then guided him through his 6-hour-long experience. At the follow-up integration session, the man described his experience to Mr. Goldstein as "quote-unquote" life-changing. He had a profound realization, which he believes has subsequently significantly shifted his OCD, says Mr. Goldstein.
Oregon voted by ballot to legalize psilocybin for use by adults in supervised settings in 2020, becoming the first state to enact such a measure. The drug is illegal in the U.S. federally, of course. Colorado recently followed with a wider swath of psychedelics, and other states seem poised to continue the trend. The state's approaches are for non-medical use. The drugs do not have regulatory approval for therapeutic use and are currently banned at the federal level. But the promise they have shown in helping combat a variety of hard-to-treat mental health conditions has doubtlessly influenced Oregon's framework and will likely drive much of the demand for the services there. The therapeutic trials, the standard approach is to give the drugs in supervised sessions, augmented to a greater or lesser extent by therapy before, during, and after.
Yeah, and if psychedelics are ever going to go mainstream, they will have to be approved by regulators as prescription medicine, which, in addition to providing assurance, they are safe and effective. In the U.S., opens up the potential for health insurance coverage. MDMA, otherwise known as ecstasy, or also known as ecstasy, and psilocybin-assisted therapy for PTSD and treatment-resistant depression, respectively, are furthest forward, with MDMA recently successfully showing efficacy in a phase 3 clinical trial, and a similar trial for synthetic psilocybin is currently in progress. As well as clearing regulatory hurdles, it's likely the treatments themselves will have to change. The 6-hour treatment experienced by Mr. Goldstein's client is likely to be too time-consuming for many patients. So biotech firms are already working on the next generation of psychedelics, which aim to either shorten the trip time or cut out the mystical hallucinogenic part altogether.
Oh.
I know. Healing's in the trip, in my opinion.
Yes, that's where the healing is. Absolutely, Ron. You are 100% correct. Shorter acting psychedelics. Okay, that I can go with. Or non-hallucinogenic psychedelics. Well, not so much. Have become popular among investors in the past couple of years, says Josh Hardman, an analyst at the Psychedelic Alpha, which tracks the sector. They remain a hotspot, even of late, as an investment in the psychedelic drug industry more broadly has been dipping. Mr. Hardy estimates about a dozen or so companies have adopted it is as a main or at least a significant focus. And while it's hard to estimate precisely, at least 500 million or 400 million euros in investment has flowed in through those sectors. Among those pursuing a shorter trip with novel molecule similar to biologically to psilocybin is Gilgamesh, a U.S. startup founded in 2019. Others include Canadian public companies Mindset Pharma and Bright Minds.
Yeah, a shorter psychedelic experience could both entice more patients. Not everyone is able to spend a day in a dosing clinic, and free up clinical space so more people can receive treatment, says Andrew Krugel, the company's co-founder and chief scientific officer. Gilgamesh has a compound which is intended with some psychotherapy to treat depression and anxiety. It is currently in a phase 1 clinical trial focused on safety. Like psilocybin, it targets serotonin receptors in the brain, which drives the hallucinogenic effects. But the length of the trip is reduced to about an hour. Alternative approaches others are pursuing include starting with very short-acting psychedelics related to psilocybin and modifying them chemically so things last longer. And separately, changing the way psilocybin is delivered from orally to intravenously to give a shorter experience. UK-based Small Pharma. Did you have something to add there?
Yeah, no, I wonder how you would give psilocybin with an intravenous.
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe something already exists that I don't know about.
Yeah, it could be. I guess the liquid extract form, I guess.
Possibly. I don't know.
I don't
Gives
know.
me
I'm
some
gonna have to
homework
look
to
into that.
look at.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, me
definitely.
too. Sorry. Carry on.
Yeah,
Sorry.
no. I just that was kind of interesting too. When I was
Yeah.
reading, I was like, I've never heard of that before.
Yeah. Yeah.
UK-based Small Pharma has a drug candidate that extends the trip length of DMT, the active ingredient in the hallucinogenic beverage ayahuasca, from 20 to 30 minutes to about 45 minutes. And Beckley Psytech, also UK-based, is looking at the intravenous administration of psilocybin's biologically active metabolite, psilocin, which would bring down the length of the trip to about an hour and a half. Both have initiated phase 1 clinical trials. So there's some stories, there's some information there right there for us to look up with
Yeah,
Beckley.
absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Beckley's on. Of course, Beckley would be in it, right?
Exactly. And other firms are looking at losing the hallucinogenic component altogether, which potentially would open up psychedelics to being taken at home, as there's no longer a chance of a bad trip.
Yeah, okay. Among the startups taking purely non-hallucinogenic tack include U.S.-based Delix Therapeutics and Celera, both also founded in 2019. Delix's approach is to try and harness the antidepressant-like neuroplasticity effects of psychedelics. Research show that they promote the growth of new neural connections which better allow the brain to rewrite its circuitry, but leave behind the subjective mystical experience. Convincing people is hard, but there's no definitive evidence that the hallucinogenic experience is the cause of psychedelics' therapeutic effects, says David Olson, the company's chief innovation officer and associate professor of chemistry, biochemistry, and molecular medicine at the University of California, Davis. Professor Olson co-founded Delix off the back of his laboratory work there. Tested in mice, Delix's leading molecule doesn't appear hallucinogenic. It is currently also in phase 1 clinical trial that will tease out whether that's also true in people, says Professor Olson. The company hasn't declared which mental illness will be its first target, but the advantages Professor Olson anticipates of non-hallucinogenic psychedelics over antidepressants is that they would kick in much sooner and could be taken less often. Antidepressants sometimes take weeks or months to work and need to be taken daily. And of course, that's not the case with psychedelics.
Exactly. Yeah, and yet others are doubtful the same outcomes will be seen with shorter trips or without the trip altogether. They believe that the subjective, mystical experience is important, and the longer the trip, the better. Gul Dolan, an associate professor of neuroscience at Johns Hopkins University, studies how psychedelics work. Her research shows they open a window of time, a so-called critical period in the brain, where it is more sensitive to the environment and it has an enhanced ability to learn and form lasting memories. Psilocybin's critical period, for example, lasts 2 weeks. And the longer the trip, the longer the critical period. The company is trying to shorten the trip duration or remove the hallucinogenic component are probably going to interfere with the therapeutic effect, says Professor Dolan, who also emphasizes the importance of therapy after the trip for the learning opportunity it can provide. Mr. Goldstein, the psilocybin facilitator, agrees. For him, the idea of either snuffing out or shortening the psychedelic experience is nothing short of repulsive. Coming into contact with yourself takes time and active participation, he says.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I mean, we both have equal opinions. I think feel very similarly about removing the hallucinogenic portions of this. I'm never going to get behind that. I don't. I think that's part of it. That's the part of the processing that takes place. It's more than growing neurons and pathways in the brain. It's the processing that takes place during those trips.
Yeah.
That's the healing process, in
Yeah.
my opinion.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But shortening the trip, yeah, I'm on board with that.
Yeah. Exactly. To have a variety, like if someone wants to have a longer one, have it. If someone wants a shorter one,
that's right.
But to
Options.
remove it altogether, I know we're saying options, but when it comes to looking at the therapeutic benefits, how much of the therapeutic benefits are you removing if you're removing the
Yeah.
trip?
That's right. That's right.
So just do your research and experience it for yourself too.
Yeah.
Not just talking to you, I'm talking to the listeners. So,
absolutely. 100%. 100%. Do your research out there, folks.
Yeah, exactly. So anyways, we're moving over to our last story before the break. This one here is coming to us from PBS NewsHour. Oregon's new psilocybin service center invites public to try psychedelic mushrooms.
What?
Cool
What
stuff.
are you doing in Eugene, Oregon? Psilocybin tea, wind chimes, and tie-dye mattresses await those coming to an office suite in Eugene to trip on magic mushrooms. For roughly 6 hours, adults over 21 can experience what many users describe as vivid geometric shapes, a loss of identity, and oneness with the universe. Epic Healing Eugene, Oregon's first licensed psilocybin service center, opened in June, making the state's unprecedented step in offering the mind bending drug to the public. The center now has a wait list of more than 3,000 names, including people with depression, PTSD, and end of life dread. No prescription is or referral is needed, but proponents hope Oregon's legalization will spark a revolution in mental health care.
Yeah. And Colorado voters last year passed a measure allowing regulated use of magic mushrooms starting in 2024. And California's legislature this month approved a measure that would allow possession and use of certain plant and mushroom based psychedelics, including psilocybin and mescaline, with plans for health officials to develop guidelines for therapeutic use. The Oregon Psilocybin Services Section, charged with regulating the state's industry, has received, quote, hundreds of thousands of inquiries from all over the world, end quote. Actually, that was according to Angela Albee, the agency's manager, she said in an interview. There's another quote from her. She says, so far, what we're hearing is that clients have had positive experiences. And while psilocybin remains illegal in most of the United States, the Food and Drug Administration in 2018 designated it a quote-unquote breakthrough therapy. This summer, the FDA published draft guidance for researchers designing clinical trials for psychedelic drugs. Researchers believe psilocybin changes the way the brain organizes itself and helps the user adopt new attitudes and overcome mental health issues.
Very cool. Very cool. The Oregon Psychiatric Physicians Association, however, opposed Oregon's 2020 ballot measure legalizing psilocybin, saying it's unsafe and makes misleading promises to those Oregonians who are struggling with mental illness, quote unquote. Albee noted that psychedelic mushrooms have been a part of tribal and spiritual healing practices for thousands of years. Her agency is focused on safety, she said. First, customers must have a preparation session with a licensed facilitator who stays with clients as they experience the drug. The facilitator can deny access to those who have an active psychosis, thoughts of harming anyone, or who have taken lithium, which is used to treat mania in the past month. The clients can't buy mushrooms to go, and they must stay at the service center until the drug wears off. Besides approving psilocybin, Oregon voters in 2020 decriminalized possession of hard drugs, cementing the state's reputation as a leader in drug law reform. Oregon was the first state to decriminalize marijuana possession and one of the first to legalize recreational use. But these days, the regulated marijuana industry is struggling with massive oversupply, and drug decriminalization has not greatly expanded addiction treatment or reduced overdoses as hoped. A new poll indicates that most voters would repeal it. Hoo-hoo.
It's too early to assess Oregon's It's too early to assess Oregon's mushroom legalization. Oregon's psilocybin services spent 2 years establishing regulations and began accepting license applications in January. There are now 10 licensed service centers, 4 growers, 2 testing labs, and dozens of facilitators. While Epic Healing Eugene has a long wait list, thanks in part to early media attention, other service centers say business is picking up as awareness spreads. Omnia Group Ashland, which opened this month in Southern Oregon, has a prospective client list of 150, said co-founder Brian Lindley. Jeanette Small, the owner of Lucid Cradle in Bend, said she intends to see only 1 client per week to give close attention to each and is already booked through December. The law allows local jurisdictions to ban psilocybin operations, and several rural counties have done so. There are complaints the cost is too high, but those in the industry expect prices to fall as more businesses are established. A client can wind up paying over $2,000, which helps cover the service center expenses. A facilitator and lab-tested psilocybin. Annual licenses for service centers and growers cost $10,000 with a half-price discount for veterans. Albee said her agency requires every licensee to work toward social equity goals, and with some already providing sliding scale price models. She expects Oregon's psilocybin program, currently receiving millions in taxpayer dollars, to be fully supported by licensing fees by mid-2025. She promised to then boost efforts to lower prices.
My computer is frozen.
Okay, I'll carry on. Kathy Jonas, Epic Healing Eugene's owner, says she doesn't expect her service center to start making money for a while. Providing legal access to psychedelic mushrooms is a calling, she said. There's a quote from her: "The plant medicines have communicated to me that I'm supposed to be doing this thing." State regulations allow doses of up to 50 milligrams, but when Jonas tested a 35 milligram sample of pure psilocybin, typically equal to about 6 grams of dried mushrooms, she found it so powerful that she decided it would be the most her facility would offer.
See, this is where this goes. My computer's unfrozen again, but this goes back to our previous article that we read about Health Canada. Exactly. How would she know that unless she tripped herself?
Yep.
Right? How would she know that to make that decision? Yeah. Unless she's doing it herself. Absolutely. Yeah. And this is one of the things that Health Canada is failing to take into an account. Okay, sorry about that, but I needed to throw that in there. Absolutely.
No problem. It's good information.
Yeah. One of Jonas's first clients took a 35 milligrams and described seeing a kind of infinite dimension fractal that just kept turning and twisting. It was kind of mesmerizing to watch, but it got so intense, said the client, who didn't want to be identified to protect his privacy. So I started to have the experience of dying and being reborn. And then it would kind of see large portions of my life going by in a very rapid way. There was not particularly pleasant, but it beneficially transformed how he views painful memories and provided a sought-after mystical experience. Licensed grower Garrett Hansen has come full circle in the 16 years he spent as a police officer in San Francisco. Today he runs Uptown Fungus with one-person psilocybin growing operation in a nondescript building set among towering cedar trees in Springfield, Oregon. This is a long article. I'm going to skip over a lot of this little bit at the end as a little anecdotal story. Sometimes he meditates while growing the mushrooms and wheeling and feeling the healing energy. Little brown psychedelic mushrooms can be found growing in the fields or in the woods, but they closely resemble poisonous varieties. So be cautious out there, people, against obtaining a psilocybin cheaper or on the black market or by tripping alone. Sometimes part of the healing could be a negative experience someone has got to go through, a kind of flush of negative emotions out of the re-experience and some trauma in a healthier way, Hampton said. I'd hate to have someone that's never tried it before take it home, have a bad trip, and hurt themselves. And that's solid advice for somebody that's brand new to doing this kind of medicine.
Yep, 100%. 100%. Agree with that.
Yeah.
So that is the first three stories here for tonight. And so you know what that means. It's medication time.
That's right. It's time for us to pay some bills, find out about a few of the other shows that we have here on the network. And then we'll return with more articles that Bufo has chosen, making mainstream media news.
And we'll be back in about 4 minutes and 20 seconds. Lost my spot on the lines here. Here on the Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network. Peace, everyone. Stay tuned. Don't go away.
NOK Network offers a diverse lineup of live video podcasts. The IWK 710 Daily Sesh, nightly at 7 p.m. Ganja News Update, Mondays at 8 p.m. Psychedelic Reporters, Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Peace, News and Views, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Open Your Eye, Thursdays at 8 p.m. What's up, Northern Ontario? Spotlight on Entertainment, Movie Nights, and live on location coverage, monthly on NOK. Miss a podcast? Catch the replay anytime on Rumble, Facebook, Twitter, or LinkedIn. You can also find us on our webpage at www.noknetwork.com. Are you a Northern Ontario resident? Searching for credible information on cannabis as a medicine? No Sir is here to help. Established in 2013, Northern Ontario Cannabis Education and Resources is here for you. No Sir Director Kim Cooper brings you 45 plus years experience utilizing cannabis as a medicine and is spreading the education across the North. Activism, resources, referrals, and more at No Sir. Don't be a jackass. Say no sir to cannabis propaganda with No Sir. Find us at www.nocer.ca.
NOK Network is pleased to present Ganja News Update. Join joint hosts Kristen, Tara, and Ron McNabb as they bring you their global cannabis news updates. Catch the Ganja News Reporters weekly on Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern as they cover cannabis news from around the world in this 60-minute live video podcast. Stay up to date with Ganja News Updates, Mondays at 8 p.m. Eastern on NOK Network. Follow and subscribe to NOK Network on our webpage, social media, and streaming sites, including YouTube and Rumble.
Advertising space available at NOK. Contact us for a rate sheet at NOKNetwork.com. Send us a message on our social media platforms or email us at info@NOKNetwork.com.
Open your eyes.
Join us on Psychedelic Thursdays at 8 p.m. Eastern Time for Open Your Eye, our 90-minute video podcast with hosts Kim Cooper and Tara Simpson. Join hosts sit down with patients, facilitators, lawyers, and others in the space to discuss their experiences and endeavors working with psychedelic medicine. Tune in weekly to Open Your Eye at 8 p.m. Eastern for all your news and information from the realm of psychedelic medicine. Here on NOK Network.
And we're back from our medication session here on Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network.
That's right. And we have another set of stories coming at you from the realm of psychedelic medicine. So let's get at it. And this next story here is coming to us from, I'll let you say it,
Benzinga.
I had to turn it over to you. I didn't even realize that it was from Benzinga, but I had to turn it to you for that.
I just love the name of that company. Benzinga in the house.
Psychedelics researchers and industry leaders weigh in on the groundbreaking PTSD treatment news.
Wow.
There we go.
All the way down there. Where does this story?
The long awaited.
Holy. Where? Carry on, Ron, because I'm trying to find it.
Okay. The long-awaited psychedelic-assisted treatment alternative for post-traumatic stress disorder (PTSD) is moving closer to federal approval. The Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies, otherwise known as MAPS, and its private subsidiary company, MAPS PBC, shared the publication of the results for the most advanced clinical trial, phase 3 study on MDMA-assisted therapy for the treatment of moderate to severe PTSD with solid confirmatory results on the therapy's efficacy and safety. After 18 weeks, 86.5% of participants who received MDMA-assisted therapy experienced a significant reduction in PTSD symptoms, and 71.2% of them no longer met the PTSD diagnostic criteria. This group had remission criteria that more than doubled that of the placebo group, 46.2% versus 21.4%.
Wow, that's amazing.
These numbers are staggering.
Yeah. Rick Doblin, PhD. Yeah, of course, he's MAPS founder and president, said that MDMA-assisted therapy for PTSD is on track to be considered for approval by the FDA in 2024. If approved by the FDA, the DEA would reschedule MDMA, making it available for prescription medical use. The results and expected upcoming approval have been extensively covered by the specialized and mainstream media, including the New York Times and Reuters, further revealing its importance at a global scale. Co-founder and CEO of mental health care company MAPS research partner New Minus Wellness, Peyton Nyquist, called it a significant milestone, not just for the healthcare and psychedelic industries, but also for humanity as a whole, quote unquote. Nyquist
says that millions of people living with PTSD are hoping to access MDMA-assisted therapy as a safe, effective healing modality, and that it goes without saying that the industry tips its hat to Rick Doblin and the entire MAPS team. Dr. Mathis Lecce is the Swiss psychopharmacologist and PI of other psychedelic clinical studies, said the study's importance lies in the fact that it confirms MDMA works.
Yeah. The American Psychedelic Practitioners Association, APPA's team says that although the findings are solid, promising, and supported by statistical analysis, the small sample size still requires further study. The real estate for psychedelic clinics, Healing's CREI's CEO and healthcare sector investor Cody Shrandra views the news as an exciting indicator of the industry's growth. Because of the global need for these innovative therapies, we anticipate that the demand from patients for this life-saving treatment will necessitate 16,000 new clinics in the U.S. to support MDMA therapy by 2031, Chandra added. Jamaica-based Myco Meditations CEO Justin Townsend said this pivotal moment underscores a glaring gap between the burgeoning enthusiasm for psychedelic therapies and their limited availability, which is in turn driving a surge of interest in psychedelic retreats.
Yeah, it is. That we cover some of those retreats here on this show weekly, and there's a ton of them, that's for sure.
Yep.
And entactogen, MDMA, belongs to a class of psychoactive drugs that produce experiences of emotional communion and emotional openness that can be used for various medical conditions. PTSD, for its part, affects nearly 13 million Americans each year, yet currently available treatments only provide modest efficacy. While impacting nearly all areas of life, people with PTSD also frequently experience comorbidities, including anxiety, depression, and substance use disorder. Its enormous economic impact results in an annual burden of over $200 billion per year. MDA was used in the 1960s and 70s in conjunction with psychological therapy by mental health practitioners to enhance a patient's access, possessing and communication of difficult emotions and experiences until 1985. The DEA made it a Schedule I drug under the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, preventing it from being used for recreational or medical use. See, I got to stop there for a second. This is what pisses me off about the DEA and the Controlled Substances Act, okay? Whenever you put anything on the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, it's when it's Schedule I in the United States, that means it has no medicinal value. How can you move something that is on the CDSA currently being used in the medical system to a Schedule I saying it has no medicinal value if it's already in the CDSA?
Right.
You know, the CDSA is the go-to schedule for doctors where they look up medicines that are being used in practice. Right?
Exactly.
So, I mean, it being on both those lists simultaneously on one day, on the day that it's taken off of one and put on another, they're simultaneously residing on both those lists, which is an oxymoron unto itself.
Exactly.
I mean, it makes no sense. That just it infuriates me that the U.S. moved so many substances that were already being used in the medical system to a Schedule I, stating they have no medicinal value. It makes no sense to me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you want to finish, or you want me
Yo,
to?
carry on. You
Okay.
go ahead.
Since then, research has shown MDMA acts as a powerful catalyst to support psychotherapy by helping attenuate the brain's fear response, allowing patients to access and process painful memories without being overwhelmed. With a growing body of evidence supporting its potential medical use, in 2017, the Food and Drug Administration, the FDA, granted MDMA-assisted therapy the breakthrough therapy designation, a process designed to expedite the development and review of drugs intended to treat serious conditions, and that preliminary clinical evidence indicates that it may demonstrate substantial improvement over available therapies.
Yeah. Interesting stuff. MDMA is pulling up alongside psilocybin in the fast lane.
Yep.
Absolutely. Good stuff.
We're moving over to Yes, we are going over to Sweden. There we go. This one's from Mugglehead Magazine. Sweden's Norsken Foundation launches $4.4 million psychedelics mental health initiative.
Very cool. Way to go, Sweden. They look like ink drop.
Liberty Cap.
In that picture. Oh, Liberty Cap.
It says psilocybe similarly, or I don't know how to pronounce that, but they're Liberty Cap, it says.
Very cool. They look like a native North American mushroom called ink drop. Okay. Cool. A Swedish nonprofit investing $3.3 million in psychedelic research so the country can become a more established influence in the field. A Norsken Foundation announced that the creation of Norsken Mind, a psychedelic science initiative, on Wednesday, which will be focused on investigating the potential of psychoactive substances for the treatment of mental health conditions. The funds will initially be utilized for studies on psilocybin and MDMA-assisted therapy at the Karolinska Institutet, a prestigious medical school in Stockholm, and Umeå University, a public research institute in northern Sweden. The foundation hopes that these studies will provide it with insight into the cognitive and neurobiological changes linked to psilocybin therapy and the efficacy of MDMA for treating depression in young adults.
And Norsken says the study being planned on MDMA would be the first of its kind in the country, and that Norsken Mind was created to help the country catch up to the rest of the world in psychedelics research, a rapidly developing field with significant implications for mental health. There's a quote here. There are plenty of interested researchers in Sweden and across Europe, and with the right funding and conditions in place, we can help them investigate more effective treatment options, accelerate psychedelic research, and ensure that Sweden does not stay behind the rest of the world. And that was according to Norsken Mind's managing director, Emma Kristersson. Norsken aims to fund research throughout Europe in the future. Approximately $840,000 will be allocated to the psilocybin and MDMA studies, and the initiative has made over $3.6 million available for psychedelics research. Norsken Mind will focus on Sweden to begin with, but aims to be able to fund studies throughout Europe in the long term. There's a quote here. The most important factor in developing more effective mental health treatments is high quality research, and that requires substantial capital. Through this initiative, we aim to generate more funding to catalyze more much needed research in this area, and said the foundation CEO, Funda Sezgi. The foundation says estimates indicate that costs associated with mental health conditions globally could rise as high as $6 trillion US annually by 2030. Psychedelic therapies have shown promising potential to deter this worrying trend in recent days, but further research is still needed. The news comes days before the Multidisciplinary Association for Psychedelic Studies published data from a phase 3 clinical trial on MDMA therapy in the journey Nature Medicine, which we just reported on with extremely high success numbers. A significant development in the field. Notably, the trial found that 37 out of 52, or 71.2% of participants, no longer met criteria for having the disorder by the end of the study. So, there
great
we got
numbers,
Sweden,
right? Great
exactly. Numbers. Sweden's looking to not fall behind in this.
Yeah, and I mean, I think every country is at that point right now where they're playing catch up with North America.
Exactly. But there's one line in there that I don't like, and I had to read it again. But more further research is still needed. How much more research?
You know what?
Do you need?
I laughed when you said that line too. I laughed when you read that line because you know what? We're still hearing that with cannabis as well.
Here's something that I just kind of just popped in my head is we have a global economy, right? So we have global trade agreements here and there between countries. And why can't we all agree to the studies? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
They're already working all together, yet they're all saying that they need to have their own studies done within their own country. Well, you're already doing business with other countries. A lot of these countries are also already doing exports.
I know.
And yet they don't have a legal framework in their own place. They only have for producing for export.
Yeah.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, no, it doesn't make a whole lot of sense to anybody that's outside of the field, I think, at this point.
I know.
It's just the whole thing is just redundant. They're still studying cannabinoid therapy as well. So I mean there you have it, right? More study. Yeah. But I mean we can put a drug out on the market in 6 months.
Exactly.
We don't need more study for that.
Yep.
Yep. Yes.
Anyway, we're on to our last story for the evening. You can take this one away.
All righty. If I can get it to load, here we are. We're in Michigan live inside the 2023 Ann Arbor Psychedelic Shroom Fest at the University of Michigan. Look at that lovely lady blowing some lovely bubbles.
I love bubbles.
Bubbles are awesome.
Anyways, moving on. I digress. I got Live Peyote, a mobile vendor pulling a wagon full of psychedelic plants and shrooms, called out on the University of Michigan Diag on Sunday, September 17th. Mr. Bear, as he goes by, then pulled out his various products, including a baby peyote cactus in a small pot and a bag full of potent tidal wave psilocybin mushrooms. He was just one of the many entrepreneurs unofficially hawking their goods at Ann Arbor's 3rd annual EntheoFest, a hash bash style festival celebrating all the entheogenic plants and fungi Ann Arbor effectively decriminalized in 2020.
That's awesome. And I love the hash bash, and I love that they're following this up with EntheoFest. Yeah. I mean, I think that's fantastic. Leave it to Ann Arbor.
Exactly.
Oh, that's great. Baggies full of shrooms could be had for $40 on Sunday, while shroom grow kits sold for $30. University of Michigan police stood watch over the event, which was attended by hundreds of people, many in shroom-themed attire. The festivities included musical entertainment and speeches by activists and elected officials who support broad decriminalization of the hallucinogenic natural substances that are still illegal under state and federal law. It was mostly a chill affair, and the police reported no arrests or issues of concern. While Washtenaw County prosecutor Eli Sept was among the afternoon speakers and reassured the crowd that they had nothing to worry about if they were partaking. There's a quote here from him. The great news is the third year in a row now, nobody's got to worry about prosecution afterwards, he said, noting it remains his policy not to prosecute anyone for using, possessing, or cultivating entheogenic plants and fungi, which he describes as medicine that helps people.
Yeah, and this job that I have requires tough choices. This was not one of them, Sept said of his stance. And that's not him there. That's someone else, I think.
Yeah.
One of the organizing groups for Sunday's event was the Student Association for Psychedelic Studies at UM. Group president Emma Mead, a social work graduate student, says she's been interested in the field of psychedelic studies since she was 16, when her silver-haired and ponytailed psychiatric mentor sat her down and raved about the therapeutic benefits being seen in research involving psilocybin, MDMA, and ketamine. As a quote here, continuing to watch this research unfold, especially here at the University of Michigan, has only deepened my interest in psychedelic therapies, Mead said. And there she is there.
Yeah.
And through her late teens and early adulthood, she felt the need to tiptoe around those interests, always worried she would be labeled a druggie or a burnout, she said. There's a quote, "This experience has motivated me to challenge the stigma around psychedelics as well as spread awareness and education about their potential benefits," she said. SAPS was founded 5 years ago by 3 UM social work graduate students. And there's a quote, "Our mission has been and continues to be to expand objective awareness and provide opportunities for education and discussion about all things psychedelics, including the newest research, therapeutic uses and approaches, legal and political developments, ethics and issues surrounding privilege, oppression, diversity, and social justice," Mead said.
That's fantastic. SAPS has hosted a number of events over the years, including network dinners, educational talks, and movie screenings. And last year, Mead said, SAPS was excitingly recognized as the official student group of the Michigan Psychedelic Center, also known as MPsyC, a new multidisciplinary team at UM that's focused on psychedelic neuroscience and therapy. MPsyC is a university-funded center that represents a breakthrough in making psychedelic research more mainstream, rigorous, and accessible at the University of Michigan, Mead said, adding that it's been exciting to see the center open as it gives her hope for the next generation of curious young adults who won't have to tiptoe around their interest in psychedelics. MPsyC has been a significant funder of SAPS, Mead said, expressing thanks for the support as well as for the work of researchers, advocacy groups, and policymakers. It's great to see so many people interested in this movement, she said, looking out over a Sunday's crowd. I appreciate all the work we're doing here today together, she said. It's important that we continue to take positive strides towards understanding and educating about the risks and benefits of psychedelics, as well as promoting ethical and safe accessibility.
Yeah. Some of Sunday's shroom vendors said they hope the next step for the not yet legal industry is legalization and regulation with laboratory testing for potency and contaminants, like there is now for cannabis. Some made assurances to prospective buyers Sunday that they have their products tested. Among the officials who spoke at the event was Washtenaw County Commissioner Yusuf Rabbi, Democratic, I guess, for Ann Arbor, who offered an enthusiastic endorsement of psychedelics. Power to the people, power to the planet, power to the plants, he yelled out to conclude a high-energy speech. And
very cool.
The end of the story. And
yeah, that's very cool. It's great to see Ann Arbor reaching out and doing this.
Exactly. I love when like, education and all of that. It's get the people out there, and that's how you break the stigmas too.
That's right. And that was our final story for the day.
That was. So I do thank you all for joining us here on Psychedelic Reporters on NOK Network, and for tuning into our video podcast on NOK Network's Rumble and YouTube pages, as well as our social media sites, including LinkedIn and Twitter. So over to you, Kim.
Absolutely. We hope you enjoyed your update on mainstream media coverage of psychedelic medicine advancements and achievements being made from around the globe.
And many thanks to our sponsors and to my joint host, Kim Cooper and Bufo Alverius. There we go. For making this show possible, and to you, our listeners, for tuning in here each week, either live or on the replay. On Psychedelic Tuesdays. So let's hear from Dead Ringer once again from Kirkland Lake on our way out. Peace, everyone, and good night. See you next week.
Good night.